Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This might be the best asymmetrical horror game that we've ever had once it finally releases. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, some of y'all might disagree completely with me, but just kind of hear me out. Let me tell you why I think this might be a really great game. And at the end, make sure you leave me your comments. Leave me your ideas. Are you excited about this game? Whatever those may be. And if you like what I do, consider subscribing. Now, as it stands right now, at the time of making this video, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the #1 asymmetrical horror game in my opinion. Now, I've compared this game to Friday the 13th and Dead by Daylight, and I think TCM edges out Friday by a little bit, but they're both fantastic games. But what Texas does really well is it brings you an authentic experience, and we have the director of Friday the 13th, we have IllFonic Publishing, and we have the Chiodo brothers who are involved with the production of this game as well. So we have those creative minds similar to TCM. And when you look at the movie compared to the game, it shows. They took great care and detail, not only making sure that the clowns are super authentic, but the map and locations are as well. From the police station to the house in the game, to the carnival, to the spaceship, the tent, and all that. I mean, it just really, everything looks authentic. And even down to the way the clowns are killed and they turn into that green crap, whatever it is, everything just seems like they paid a great attention to detail. So I can't wait to go throughout the map and kind of point out everything that we saw in the movie, similar to what I did with TCM and Friday. Now let's talk about the premise of the game. You have 3 versus 7 as opposed to 1v4 or 1v7 in Friday, or 3 versus 4 in TCM, which I think has worked the best out of all of them. And so that tells me this map is going to be much larger. And that's not something they hide, because they say it's got beaches, it's got a biker bar, the carnival. I mean, there's a lot to this map, and it randomly generates every single time you play. So it always feels new and fresh. What I guess what my biggest hope is, because I've seen screenshots of the police station, of the outside of the home, and while that stuff looks really authentic to the movie, I hope it's not so big that you kind of get these dry moments. Because one thing that TCM does really well, and Friday did pretty well too, is you had a little bit of breathability, but it always felt as if the killers could be on you at any moment. And because you have 3 killers in TCM, it feels like that too. And so that's what I'm hoping for this game, is even though it is a horror comedy that does not take itself too seriously, I still want it to feel like a horror game experience to an extent. And I say that really hoping that there is some tension and stuff that you still feel in the game. And I think if they make the clowns as formidable as they are in the movie, then you're going to get that, because you won't want to come across them. Now, one thing that's interesting, not only do we have 3 versus 7, there's also a pool of respawns the victims actually have. So as opposed to other games, when you die, you actually have a chance to come back and kill their clowns. And maybe they do that because of the size of the map. They don't want people to get killed off too quickly. And again, it'll kind of lead to this dry atmosphere where it's just too big and there's not enough people to fill it. I'm not sure how they're going to do that part of it, but I do know that, it's not a one and done. You actually have a chance to come back. Now, does that work for the clowns as well? I don't know, because we saw in the trailers where the clowns actually got killed in the game. So then that could really change the dynamic of how these things play out. Another thing that's really cool is they actually have a variety of different ways you can win as the victim. You can destroy the spaceship, you can escape before time runs out, or you can make sure that most of the people in Crescent Cove actually survive. And so the way they make it sound, when you're a victim, you drop in, you loot, and you gather weapons in order to, complete your objective, whichever objective that's going to be, and, utilize your way to escape. And it's also timed, so that will add a level of tension to it, knowing you have to do these things before a, timer runs out, similar to Friday the 13th. By the way, there is one feature I saw in one of these trailers that allows you to look behind you if a clown is chasing you. Even though it's in third person, I really like that feature. On the clown side, we have 5 to choose from, and they all look super authentic. not only in the way they look, but in the sounds.
Terrorize all humans.
The soundtrack for the game, the sounds of the clowns is pretty terrifying. And so I really like the sound design. Amongst everything else we've talked about, that is vital in horror, and it's no exception here. The sound is really good, it's really important, and it seems like they've nailed that. Also, you have the variety of different weapons for clowns. I mean, we're talking about killer clowns from outer space that carry, popcorn shotguns, and one has a balloon sniffing dog, that it's just kind of crazy, but it seems like a lot of fun, and I think it'll work well in a gaming format. There was also one trailer where I saw where you kind of have the grandpa effect, what I call it, where you see the outline of some of the victims. So each one of the clowns has their own abilities too. I know Shorty puts on the boxing gloves and, knock your block off like you did in the movie to the biker.
What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
So when you see that, it sounds kind of silly, but then you remember, hey, this is still a horror game, and some of the kills look actually pretty brutal. And then we have the expansion and post-launch content, which they've already talked about. New maps, new killers, new victims. By the way, you can play as bikers, rednecks, teens, all your favorite 80s stereotypes, which is kind of cool. They have their own abilities that you can use, but then also the ability to expand upon the game. There's one movie. You actually have the opportunity to build upon this maybe more than what some of these other franchises can. There's no limit to the possibilities of what they can do, with all the crazy weapons and the clowns and locations that they can just come up with. And so I'm pretty excited to see how far they go with this. And I hope it does well. And at its core, we just want a fun, good experience that doesn't have a lot of bugs, not a ton of microtransactions. We just want a fun experience. And with IllFonic Publishing, we have director Friday the 13th, like I said. I am super hopeful that this will be one of the best asymmetrical games out there, and 3 versus 7 sounds like a fantastic time. And also the possibilities, I think, are endless. But of course, I want to hear from y'all, man. What do you think about Killer Clowns? Are you excited for this game? Love to hear from y'all. Big thanks. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.